Ahoy! Patch 9.9 Houses at War for Smite is out, and this patch comes with a Conquest overhaul, a roadmap, a lot of guard changes as well, so generally a lot of things happening at once, and also a lot of very, very interesting skins. So let's go through it, let's talk about it. First, we have the first row of skins here for the Battle Pass, House of Phoenix Amaterasu, House Unicorn Chang'e, House Dragon Yuhuang, and then we also have House Jackal Anubis, look pretty cool. We have a crossover in the Avatar chest again with Momo Red Tusker. We have Catless Atlas. I actually wanted to open this up real quick because I want to show you. It has this like furball, is that a yarn ball and everything. It's really, really cool. And we have Twilight Sky Jing Wei, as well as Lucent Nightmare Samu Kong here, with the Catless and the Jingwei skin being from the Odyssey event again. And then we have the next skins from the Odyssey event here, which is Necro from Hume's Agni and Bioslicer Tsukuyomi. And then in the Taco Time chest, we have another food-themed skin, Taco Sura Bakasura. I'll be honest, it looks a little bit off to me because it doesn't really look like Bakasura anymore. But I know people really like the skin theme, so for those of you who enjoy that, surely you'll like this one. And we have King of Heart Zeus. I don't know what that's inspired by, like, obviously card games somehow, but why King of Heart on Zeus? I don't know. But anyways, that's what we're getting. Then here's the release schedule for everything, if you want to look over that. Smite Night, obviously, going on as usual, just the two of us. Then Classic Conquest, Corrupt Arena, and All Out Slash. And then we have the full battle pass here, will be 600 gems, and these are the rewards. You've already seen the skins briefly, so we don't need to talk about that much further. And then we're getting to the roadmap. So the roadmap comes with a lot of stuff. What they're again going to do, which becoming a bit of a repeat thing because they did the exact same thing last year and promised that it wouldn't happen this year, and that last year was the exception. It was when they delayed. I think Shiva was the one that was delayed, but they did it again. They had to shift something, and they had to push back the last guard into the next year, or rather not at all, because they said the guard will be shifted into the future or potentially pivoted to be an entirely different guard. So basically I imagine that maybe they just didn't end up with a design that they were happy with for this guard, and they just kind of decided we're gonna either scrap it or delay it at least. And yeah, there are some things that are being turned around. So in this update, there will be the Volcanic Chaos Conquest theme, which is a Polynesian theme. We'll look at that a little bit later, also a bit more visually. And then in October, there will be a new god, highly requested character from an underpopulated Pantheon will arrive, Smite's newest Guardian, which, as far as I recall, should be Voodoo, should be Madame Brigitte, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Would match the underpopulated one as well. And then in November, there will be the RuneScape crossover event. We already kind of heard about that. What they say about that here is that it will have a RuneScape-inspired progression system for these cosmetics, which is very interesting because RuneScape progression is grinding the same thing over and over for days. So I don't know what they mean by that, but maybe someone who plays RuneScape can tell me more. Then in the December update, we get a new PvP adventure mode, visiting the realms of the North Pantheon. Now, I'm very, very excited for this. Them actually bringing back proper adventures, like not just, like Classic Conquest is cool, but it's not really an adventure in my eyes. I was kind of honestly hoping for a PvE adventure because we haven't had those in ages, but very curious what this could be. Technically, Smite Car would be a PvP adventure mode. I'm just saying. Technically. I don't know, but technically. Not going to get your hopes up, but technically I could. Because today somebody also, Ponpon, I think, or Clumsy. No, I think Ponpon retweeted something about Smite Car 2 as well. So who knows? And in January, there will be a new guard and also Smite's 10th year celebration. Then there will be Smite World Championship as well. And they say that basically there are many exciting things that they can't reveal yet, but also a new guard. So we only have 2 months without a guard. Ironically, Hi-Res has this tendency to make the December the dead month for content, which as a content creator is very frustrating because December is where like literally way more ads are being ran on YouTube than at any other point of the year, and YouTubers make in general like the Christmas bonus. With Hi-Res that never really happens. Not so much of a problem for me anymore, but I feel a bit bad for the other content creators, unless obviously this PvP adventure mode is so massive that people are going to be super hyped for it, which could be the case depending on how good it is. So let's hope it's good. And in February, there will be another new guard, so they're kind of going back to back between January and February with 2 new guard releases to make up for the delay beforehand, so this is just a one-off thing. So yeah, should be a very exciting start into the next year that with the secondary guard release in February also keeps the hype going a little bit, which is I think very good for player retention, so for Smite health going into the next year, so that's great. And then there are some new exclusive skins, 80 new exclusive skins in the awesome chest, or not new skins, but rather skins that you can get now. A bunch of guard avatars that you can get by playing a guard 3 times, new ones again. And some SCC avatars as well, if you want to support those teams. Then we have a lot of bug fixes here. I think I am just going to skip over that as far as I recall. There wasn't that much major stuff in here. Just going to quickly scroll over it to make sure that I'm not missing anything. But yeah, a few guard interactions here, obviously, as usual, that are getting fixed. And yeah, this was just a UI art thing, so yeah, cool. That brings us to a change for ranked. I think a relatively highly requested one. Masters and Grandmasters players will reset to Diamond 1 and 2750 MMR. This is in all ranked modes. No changes to guard leaderboards and no changes to players at lower ranks. This is so that basically there is more of a reason to keep playing. But I think they still need to do something more extreme long term. There's still like a lot of complaints about generally just, you know, like minor resets not being enough and them wanting to have more of an incentive to keep playing on the main once reaching MMR cap. So I really hope that that's something they're looking into next year for the people that, you know, are constantly frustrated with that. What we have as well is the Conquest map change. Now I'm going to quickly show you a part of the showcase here, just to give you a bit of an idea of what it visually looks like. Here's the fire giant pit. It's like a volcano now. Then we also have the crabs, the beach on the left side here a little bit, on the duo side, I mean. So that is a bit of a throwback though. For some reason the beach looks a lot darker than it used to, but we have some little crabs here. There is a new totem that is also Polynesian themed, looks very cool in my opinion. Along with that, the offerings also change. You now get like weakened minions that drop little crabs. Don't really change anything beyond the visual part. And then there is a change to the dual side map. You can see it here. There is one camp, a contested camp in the middle now instead of the side camps that we had before. And that drops the scepter now. I think it's called Indra's Scepter or something. We'll talk about it in a second. But that effect, which deals extra damage, is back so that you can utilize that in the early game if you're contesting this objective. And I think the rest of the changes that we have here, well, the solo side gets a switch up on the mobs that are in the side camps, but I think it's also just visual. And the Gold Fury can now spawn again, but we'll get to that as well. I think the most other changes are not on the visual side, so we'll jump back into the actual notes. So we have the visual changes here that they talk about, and then the obelisks that have been visually changed as well. The Gold Fury is now added into the pool of Furies that can spawn past 20 minutes. They have Enrainius in Vengeance now, whatever that is, which gives you standing under an allied tower or Phoenix will boost its physical power and reduce its damage taken by 7%. And this stacks up to 3 times. So a defensive buff, if you can sneak a Gold Fury while you're getting pressured, while the enemy maybe has Fire Giant, you're going to be able to hold structures a little bit better. On the duo side, we have the Naga camp now that I just showed you. This drops Interceptor. Interceptor has a lifetime of 3 minutes. Can only hit 3 targets now, and it deals 2% of current health instead of maximum health to guards. and the minute damage is scaling from 20 to 60, with it scaling up every 3 minutes. So in very early game, it's not going to do much damage, and then a little bit more a little bit later. But it's still going to be nice to have for sure. And the HP 5 aura is also reduced from 25 to 10, quite a heavy hit. So still definitely worth getting, but not super insane or anything. Then on solo side, you have Lesser Scorpions instead. They actually give a little bit more gold and more XP. The damage camp, the red buff specifically, is changed differently from the other ones. So this has slightly increased power, the exact numbers are here, but the Berserk power scaling is reduced from 75 to 55%, and the Berserk's threshold is down from 45% to 30% of max health, so it's much shorter. And the maximum duration of the Berserk is also reduced from 10 to 5 seconds. So the red buff is going to be much easier to solo clear for the middle laner, even though it deals a little bit more damage than the minis do too. And other camps have been buffed. The mana camp has been buffed in terms of damage. The speed camp has more health, more power, more protections. Same with the minis. The void camp has more health and more power. The support buff camp has more health. No, actually, no, sorry, my bad. No, they decreased the protection on the physical buff, so it actually comes out the same. So it is actually harder to clear for mages. And the void buff and the support buff actually have decreased health but increased power. They said on the show that the health will be increased, but it's actually a shift. So it's not actually as bad as I thought it would be. So some camps will be a little bit quicker to clear, which, is I think how it should be. And a little bit more punishing to clear is as a non-jungler as well, because they deal a little bit more damage. And the Harpies, on the other hand, get a little bit more health. That's, I think, where we get the other shift. They get more health and more power. And that's basically going for all of the Harpies across the map. Generally, I don't think that camps really need a health increase at the moment, but I don't know. The whole game has been shifted in a direction where everything is slower. Time to kill is slower, and camps need to be slower to clear and everything. So I guess it just goes with the theme. I'm not really going to say much on it. I feel like the pacing of Conquest is not my personal playstyle at the moment. Then, in terms of items, we see pretty significant changes here. Divine Ruin, Spear of the Magus, Spear of Desolation all get their pen increased from 12 to 15 flat pen. These used to be built very early because of the effectiveness of early flat pen, and just 3 flat pen on each of those could make a pretty significant difference, in my opinion. Swings Bauble. Surprise, surprise, it's now getting buffs. Decreased protection debuff from 15% to 10%. They're saying they wanted to make it a little bit more appealing for supports, which I think is true for certain supports now. I do believe this item, well, still not, like, I still didn't like the way they went about it, but yeah, I believe it's probably going to get some further buffs a little bit later down the road. Not for a while, but yeah, that's what I'm predicting for now. Magi's Shelter. Increase the range of this from 25 to 40 and increase the duration of the ally buff effect of their gifted bubble from 5 seconds to 8 seconds. Very reasonable, I think, just making this a little bit more reliable. The effect is still the same. It still blocks one, or it prevents 1 CC. It's just so that you're buying the item for the passive and you actually get the passive a little bit more reliably. Heavy Executioner, the cap of the attack speed is increased from 1.75 to 1.9. Very interesting, because there's already a few niche bruiser build, assassin builds that kind of make use of this. And with 1.9, maybe there will actually be some hunters making use of this as well. Not every hunter really needs to get to attack speed cap. In the current metas, on the previous metas, there have been a lot of builds that go to attack speed caps because it is effective, and with Silver Branch being such a good item, that makes sense. But if there is a reason to not do it, and another build that can be effective with Heavy Executioner, like a crit build, for example, like, I could see that being a thing. Very, very interested to see how this will go, if this will actually be picked up by hunters. Could be like a sudden spike in popularity where it needs to get nerfed again afterwards. We'll see. Sovereignty. Decreased passives, like HP 5 aura, from 35 to 25. I've always been talking about how these health auras are generally very underrated, and now Sovereignty has been picked up in solo a lot more, and they want to shift it so that Sovereignty is not being picked up in solo as much. Therefore, the decrease here. But they're trying to compensate for that by making the starters have more HP 5. So Sentinel's Gift has its healing per assist increased from 12 to 15. Benevolence has its HP 5 increased from 7 to 10. Wolfleg has the restore effect increased from 15 to 18. Realistically, none of those is going to be as good as Sovereignty in terms of raw HP 5 or raw health that you get back, but supports don't really purely buy Sovereignty for the HP 5 either, different from solos, where it's just like, defense and HP 5 for myself. But supports also buy Sovereignty with more of a focus on the aura for teammates for protections. So I think Sovereignty doesn't really lose value for support through this, generally speaking. But it still loses value as an item overall, and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised this nerf's happening. I think even a 25 HP 5 aura, with how early you can get it far cheap, is actually still very, very good. Soul Eater, the menace of I guess mainly solo lane now, but very much a very disliked item by many players at the moment. Gets its required stacks increased from 75 to 100, and the passive ability lifesteal reduced from 25% to 20%. Honestly, I think it's actually still pretty decent. I think it's gonna take longer to reach full effectiveness, and it's gonna be a little bit worse. But I don't think this will gut Soul Eater. Like I think it's still gonna be a good item. Blackthorn Hammer gets its physical power increased from 25 to 30, which is interesting. It's 30 power and 400 health for 2,300 gold. It's definitely not bad. It's just that the item doesn't really have, I don't know, the most interesting passive, I feel. Like, 10% CDR or MP5. So you're not really gonna run out of mana, but I don't know. You're just buying this for the raw stats mainly, I think. And I don't know if that is something that people will do in the current meta with things that go on. Warrior's Axe, maybe in combination with Warrior's Axe, notable. Increase the passive guard damage and self heal from 20 to 30. So maybe you could mix these two together, and then you could get some effectives out of this. I don't know. And then Breastplate of Vigilance, increase the basic attack damage reduction aura range from 40 to 60. I think this is very understandable. Even though the aura range sounds, or the aura sounds very good, it's not exactly a super popular item in solo. It's many times not even considered at all. So giving this a bit more of a reason to be used in late game is nice, but I feel like this is something that will mainly affect higher levels of play, because at low levels of play, people will not value this change in aura. And see if it gets picked up. I think it's a great item like this. 60 units, that's pretty good. Then Mulan. Fallen behind in recent months. I feel like Mulan is like in this constant cycle of falling behind and getting buffed, and falling behind and getting buffed. What they're doing now is they're decreasing the cooldown on grapple from 16 to 14 seconds to just being 14 seconds. This is obviously very useful because it also means you get the stacks from it earlier on. That I think is a pretty effective thing. Then Divine Mastery increased the base damage on the arrow shot from 150 to 350 to 175 to 375. I don't know if that will change that much. It's a little of damage, but it's just on one of the shots. Nike Barrier Formation decreased the cooldown from 15 to scaling down to 13 seconds when it's leveled. I think, honestly, this is still almost like, this is kind of a longer-ish cooldown for this type of ability. Like this utility, help your teammate if you're exactly in the right position. I think it's good that they're decreasing it, but I wouldn't even be surprised if they're decreasing the cooldown a little bit further. Like if this had an 11 seconds cooldown, like you would be able to use it often, but it feels like you should be because you can't really do anything else while using it anyways. Then we have Ao Kuang, increased magical power scaling on the second and third hits of his hit chain from 50% to 75%. Under this it says written as 1 and then 0.7, 1 damage and 1 0.5, and then 1 swing time. I don't know why it doesn't say 7.5, if that's just rounded, like hidden in the roundings, or if they couldn't decide which of the scalings they're going to take, but these are not the same. So I'm not sure which one it is. If it is actually 75, then this means on a 3-hit chain, so just like, normal basic attack and 2 of the quick attacks after, which is usually what you can relatively easily get on most enemies, he will get an extra 50% magical power scaling at the same attack speed that he currently has. That doesn't change. That would be pretty big. I think that would be a very significant boost. A boost that could be pretty scary if you can consistently apply this. And on top of that, he also gets a buff to Wild Storm from 40 to 50%. Not bad either. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have an Awilix buff. It's happening. Initiative. Increased the duration of the physical power buff from 2.5 seconds to 4 seconds. You need to understand that this previously required you, if you want to use this effectively, especially with Feather Step, to very much perfectly time everything. So basically, you would have to like hit them with a 3, instantly pull them with the ult, instantly hit your basics on that, and instantly Feather Step to get the full benefit of initiative on your combo. In other words, that was very unrealistic and almost impossible, because usually you kind of have to see if the knockup of the ult gets confirmed first before you can, think about ulting and then factor in some ping and everything. It's usually not going to happen. Now, that's reliably going to happen. So getting pulled by Awilix and actually getting put on the ground by her, it is going to be terrifying. It's like, as long as that is the start of the fight for her, you're in for a world of pain. In addition to that, Gravity Surge has its cooldown reduced by 10 seconds flat across all ranks, which I think is very appropriate, because Awilix is built as a counter guard, which is almost an exclusive thing in Smite. I mean, Odin kind of works the same way, and some other guards have significant counter elements, but Awilix is really designed to be a counter guard, and it is a single target ability that can still be cancelled by beats. So I do believe this ability needs to be usable very frequently, and I think a 60 seconds cooldown for this is appropriate. And then obviously on top of that, you have cooldown reduction. So realistically, you'll probably be able to use this a lot more often. So very good changes that, in my opinion, should have happened a long, long time. They always is the problem that she's a pop stomper and they don't want to buff her too much. But I'm very, very happy with these changes in particular, even though I haven't played her in ages, but I might play her a bit. Naja also gets some changes. So first to Artillery Sash, increasing the base damage from 70 to 270 to 90 to 290, and decreasing the cooldown from 14 to 12 seconds. Considering that this ability is relatively punishing when missed, I think that is fair enough. In addition to that, there are various changes to ult. So increase the protection after landing from 20 to 40 to 30 to 50. This ability now provides 30 to 50 protections for 4 seconds on fire, even if missed or cleansed. And then also update the tooltip to include that the target and enemies in the landing zone are knocked up upon landing. The additional protections here that give him more of a safety net when ulting, like he even gets them while he's traveling, like while he's dashing. I mean that there's a lot less risk in using the ult. Like the moment you use the ult, you get your protections, and you have your protections even if your ult doesn't hit, and if your ult connects, then you'll have your protections afterwards. It's very interesting because it's kind of like going opposite of what Naja used to be. Like, and they say that specifically. Like he is a very all or nothing jungler. He has this like all in play style, and this is kind of giving him a bit more of an out. Obviously, like you're still an assassin. You're still like gonna get blown up if you dash in the middle of a team, and yeah, you're gonna have 50 extra protections for a bit, but that's not gonna mean that you survive everything that gets thrown at you. But there's significantly less reward in hard focusing Naja like right after he ults, which was already the case, but now also like right after he ults and it's cancelled or cleansed somehow or missed. Very interesting change. Susano gets a buff to Wind Siphon, increasing the physical power scaling from 60 to 75%. And the base damage when refining Typhoon immediately is increased from 175 to 375 to 195 to 395. And the charge damage is changed along with that from 215 to 475 to 235 to 249. I think especially the immediate refire here is pretty significant because fully charged Typhoons are obviously something that happens, but the immediate burst potential of an immediate refire is obviously much bigger, and increasing that the same amount, because it's always just a 20 flat increase, that's going to be notable. And also a cooldown reduction of 10 seconds to 90 seconds here at the same time. Decent buffs for him that I think will make him feel a fair bit better in Conquest, but he gets non-Conquest balance changes. He has a 5% longer it has 5% longer non-ultimate and ultimate cooldown outside of Conquest, and 5% less guard damage because he performs much better in other modes. Kukulkan gets a buff to Zephyr, increasing the base damage from 60 to 240 to 85 to 265. So especially the early rank here, which is a flat increase, will be very notable. This is interesting because if you play Kukulkan well and you combo the basic attack into the Zephyr with an attack cancel, you can do a lot of single target damage very quickly, assuming you confirm the projectiles. And spiking that even more could hurt. Ra, speaking of hurt, Searing Pain increased the magical power scaling from 100% to 115%. I always like me a Ra buff, just, I don't know. He is actually such a plain basic god, so I sometimes think that, him getting a little bit more power than other gods that have much more complex, advanced kits with additional effects is fair, and as such, I like this change. Vulcan, a god that is very rarely in the meta in general, gets some interesting changes. Backfire no longer counts as a movement ability, so it can be fired while crippled. I really like that change. Gives him a bit more counterplay options in certain matchups. And as much as I dislike playing against Vulcan when he's good especially, I do think that that's a fair change. And Inferno Cannon decreased the cooldown from 15 to 13 seconds and decreased the mana cost from 65 to 85 to 50 to 70. This change I don't like, just because it's annoying. Having the turret up even more often can be a little bit obnoxious to deal with. I know dual players will not like this. But I do think that he needed some buff, so yeah, I'm fine with it. Scylla, Crush. The slow that applies for 1 second after hit will now also apply the max rank debuff of 15% magical protection reduction. Why? Not a fan. She's performing worse at the moment, but I don't know. I think Crush is such an annoying, unfun to play against ability that it just should not be buffed. There are other parts of a kit that can be buffed, but Crush just shouldn't be buffed. Apuash gets a few changes. Fleeting Breath, increasing the damage tick from 30 to 50 to 30 to 70 damage. A pretty big increase per tick. I don't know how many ticks that has in total, but that should be pretty good overall damage to output. Also, Empty the Crypts gets a revert, increasing the duration from 5 to 6 seconds again. And in non-Conquest, in return, the ultimate cooldown penalty is increased from 10 to 15%. I think this is the pattern that we're going to keep seeing with Apuash. Buffing him in Conquest, non-Conquest balance changes to offset that in other modes. Kuzenbo, yeah, okay. So Water Bowl updated the description to specify how this interacts with the true hard CC category, and to include the cooldown on losing stacks. And Watery Grave increased the damage after the first spin from 50 to 60%, or rather decreased the decrease from 50 to 40%. Kuzenbo now gains 10% damage mitigation while this ability is channeled. I think that that's not really what Watery Grave needs, personally. I think that, yeah, okay, damage decrease is cool if you're going full damage Kuzenbo. But I think the mitigation seems like kind of off, because who is really focusing Kuzenbo, especially if it's support, who is focusing Kuzenbo in his Watery Grave? Like, he is CC immune and moving around relatively quickly. Why would you not focus literally everyone else on the team that's not doing that? So if you were doing that before, you shouldn't do that, and you should do that even less now, basically. What I think Watery Grave needs is more adjustments to the knock-ups, knockbacks, whatever. I still think that ability should be a minor pull instead, because this is a support. This is not... he has a push ability already. I know they don't want to do that because of the overall implications, but I think they could make it a minor pull and balance around it in other ways. But that's just me. These changes are fair enough. I mean, I'm always happy about Kuzma Boss, but I don't really think that they're going to achieve the intended target. Ram gets some buffs. Astral Strike increased the damage done beyond the first target from 75% to 80%, decreased the mana cost from 20 per shot to 15 per shot, so this is also going to be helping with clearing a fair bit. And Astral Barrage gets a revert, increasing the base damage from 180 to 540 to 190 to 550, just a little bit there. Then Carnunos, always been a bit of a weird one that doesn't really find its place in the meta. Heavy Glaive increased damage from 25% to 35% of his basic attack damage. Well, if you can get... I guess maybe for jungling. Yeah, maybe for jungling. Like, I don't know, it's too risky. And then Bramble Bars increased the initial damage from 60 to 200 to 70 to 210. Increased the area damage from 6 to 22 to 8 to 24. So this should also help a fair bit with clearing overall. So a lot of interesting changes in this patch, both balance-wise and what we can see in the future. New Conquest map, again. I think it's going to be interesting on duo side. Overall, I'm still not a fan of the pace that they currently have. Here we have the new voice actors. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, feel free to click the sub button and maybe the bell. And on that, I hope to see you for the next one soon. SLOTH, out.